Yeah, I think that absolutely. I mean, Heritage is a great think tank in the U.S. for a long time, and Ed had founded this, for many years. You have experienced so many, political and ups and downs relations. So Ed, maybe if you could share your views, historically and where we are going and where we're going forward. Because I remember last time in your office, we actually talked a bit about, can we cooperate on the infrastructure? We're now, U.S. President Biden has called Build Back Better, and European called the European Gateway. So maybe China and U.S. can work on something. Ed, maybe your turn, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Henry, and it's a great pleasure for me to be a part of this discussion, and particularly to see my longtime advisor, friend, and colleague, Governor Ambassador Branstad, with whom I'm working right now on a project in his home state of West Branch, Iowa, the Herbert Hoover Presidential Library, and we appreciate his leadership very much on that. Look, my first point, and I think everyone on the call is starting to realize this, Ambassador, Minister He, I take some exception to what you said, and I'll come to that in a minute. But the first thing is, the U.S.-China relationship is not going to go back to the good old days of George W. Bush or Barack Obama. There's a new mood in Washington, and it's not just right-wing conservatives like Tom Cotton. It's also mainstream liberal Democrats like Mark Warner from Virginia, who gets together with Cotton, who says, hey, we have to face a growing and challenging China in so many different areas. I would just point that, and I'm one of the people, going back 20 some years ago, when I called together the heads of Brookings and AEI and CSIS, and we had a joint press conference saying, yes, China should enter WTO. Yes, China should be given most favored nation status. Yes, and China's done amazing things in those intervening several decades in terms of lifting up its own population, et cetera. But one of the if China, in fact, is the second largest economy in the world, when is China going to give up the kind of built-in advantages that it designs for itself by remaining a, quote, developing country? The Republic of Korea doesn't do that anymore, but you get concessions in terms of tariff, in terms of respect for intellectual property, et cetera, for being a developing country. There's one real issue. When you talk, Minister He, about nuclear proliferation, hey, what are you doing about the DPRK, which is very clearly kind of your client state? And when you talk about what we are doing in terms of Quad, AUKUS, et cetera, what are you doing in terms of Belt and Road? So, let's get real concrete, let's get specific, and let's say, are there some of these issues that at least we can talk about and say, hey, at the margin, we should both be doing something about the DPRK, because we don't see China as being an effective force there. And frankly, and I've said this to my Chinese friends before, if the DPRK is not controlled in terms of its nuclear capabilities, and they fired another nuclear rocket toward the west coast of the United States yesterday, if that's not brought under some control, the likelihood of South Korea, of Japan, of Taiwan, of other neighbors talking about, hey, maybe we need to be nuked too. And that's not going to be helpful to China. It's not going to be helpful to the world. So maybe we can do something concretely and talk about how we can both work together in some of those very specific areas. And again, it's not the good old days, and it's not just me as a Trump person talking right now. AUKUS was not a Trump deal. AUKUS is a Biden deal. The new reaffirmation of the U.S.-China, of the U.S.-Japan 2-2 equal partners has just been reaffirmed within the last couple days by Biden and by Tokyo. This is not, again, right conservatives. This is across the board in terms of the American perception of what's going on strategically with China. And I've not really gotten into specifics on intellectual property and things like that, where we still have fundamental differences. But that's enough, I guess, of pointing out what some of the problems are. And let's see if we can come up with some solutions. And thanks everybody for being here.
So what do you think about the prospect of how can we get this unification process going, or maybe on the Korea Peninsula, what can be done? I mean, shall we have 3-party talks or 4-party talks? What's your recommendation? I mean, how we can approach this hot issue here in the Korea Peninsula?
Well, it seems to me the first thing that we ought to do is have, and may be happening, but there doesn't seem to be any clear evidence of it. There ought to be a little stronger position from Beijing toward Pyongyang in terms of what is and is not acceptable behavior, because it's very clear who's keeping Pyongyang's whole very existence, economy, and therefore its defense and military capability alive, and that's the PRC. And, you know, that's a fundamental challenge. I don't know whether President Biden and President Xi talk about this in their bilateral conversations, but I hope they would. But it seems again to me that this is something that let's figure out how we come together, how we talk about it, how we try to convince people to act constructively and very specifically. Ambassador Branstad was front and center for 4 years on this, and he knows better than I what's going on behind the scenes. But I just very much, as an outsider trying to look at it, very much get the impression that China just lets them do what they want to do, and very much supports the whole economic system. So, you know, we're up against it.
So Walter, we can continue. I think that you know, maybe I could address a bit to the Dean's question. I think that, you know, we're still in a good opportunity era, because we now have a digital economy. We have you know, the world have now with trade has gone up so many times, and you know, there's so much intertwined. You know, we have so many people-to-people exchanges, and U.S. and China has never been two pillars of the world. I mean, in terms of engine of the growth. So it depends how you look at it. I mean, of course, we are having more frictions now, but still, it's you know, we have this whole era coming to the world, and U.S. and China has you know, half a century. You know, this is Nixon visit to China 50 years ago. That you know, we have many things has made progress. The world has been more stabilized, more prosperous because of the exchanges. I particularly agree with what Ambassador Terry Branstad said on the trade. And the trade between the two sides has gone up many times, both for U.S. and China. So, and also student exchanges. U.S., you know, China has 400,000 students now studying in the United States, and we hope more U.S. students can come to China. And we know that the fast track for the COVID-19 era is just permitted for the U.S. now. U.S. American Chamber of Commerce announced that it was actually pursued by the President Xi and President Biden out of that summit. So I'm still half empty, half full. I mean, I still see opportunities, and I don't know, you know, if Ed has anything to add. You know, how we can, you know, I mean, Walter too. I mean, as a two think tank. I mean, absolutely. Ambassador He said we need a really frequent, maybe more frank talk, and we love to facilitate that. Recently, we've been talking to Peterson Institute, to the Adam Pose, the president of the Peterson Institute, also talking to president of CSIS. So we've been engaging also to the president of Rand Corporation. We do have actually some dialogue with them, but we love to really to have this more dialogue with Heritage, and particularly you know, with Walter, your center. And so how can we, you know, even though we have differences, no problem. We can reflect that. We can report that back to the relevant authorities, you know, leaders, to really know what you're really thinking, rather than seeing everything's on the news digest every morning from the media. So we love to hear your true voice on that. And So if Ed had anything to add on this track too, we love to really accommodate that. And Ronnie also says hi to you because he has something on tonight. But we love to really have this two think tank. We know that you come to China right after Trump took over. I mean, I met you in Philippines also at that time. But we love to have this dialogue with you more regularly.
Henry,
I'm
the desirability of continuing that as intensively as we possibly can. I'll leave those details up to Walter and you to work out. But I think that this has been a very constructive discussion, just to be very candid and to talk through both what the challenges are, but also a challenge is an opportunity. So let's add and multiply, not subtract and divide.
Right.